So our next speaker, Mary McLaughlin, in 2008, founded Trees That Feed Foundation with her husband Mike and brother Paul, with the mission of planting trees to feed people, create jobs, and benefit the environment. Trees That Feed Foundation now supports work in Jamaica, Haiti, and 15 other countries in the Caribbean and in Africa. Mary, who is from Jamaica, has had an amazing and diverse career that includes a degree in geology, working as a school teacher, working in the oil industry in Texas as a geologist, starting a successful glassware business, raising wonderful kids, and then returning to her rural roots in Jamaica, where she now promotes agroforestry systems that she saw practiced in Jamaica when she was a child. In the years I've known Mary, I've been amazed at how she can network with NGOs, universities, and local and international entrepreneurs around the world, collaborating in ways most of us only talk about and dream about doing. Mary, thank you for your passion for fruit trees, your gift of networking, and for accepting to come share this morning. Join me in welcoming Mary McLaughlin.
Thank you. About 11 years ago, I was in Florida one day, and I'd heard about Echo, and my husband and I drove down, and we visited Echo, and I was just intimidated. This was just such an awesome place. This was something I wanted to emulate, going back to my roots, growing up on a farm in Jamaica. But I noticed they never had breadfruit trees. They had everything else. They didn't have breadfruit trees. That's because breadfruit trees only grow in the tropics. So breadfruit trees grow in that band around the equator, same band of the equator where you have the most insecure food issues. So as I came close to retiring, I thought, what can I do to help this planet? We've been fortunate. My husband, Mike, he's in the front row here. Been fortunate we had both good careers. We were financially stable. Now it was time to give back. And I went back to my memories as a child, thinking of growing up on a farm in Jamaica. We were lucky. My father had 3 farms. We had a dairy farm. We had a farm for cattle. And we had a tiny little farm that was an agroforest. It was a few acres. And that farm, surprisingly, was very stable economically. It formed a buffer, almost like an insurance policy. When we didn't get much for the beef or the milk, we could always rely on the avocados, the guavas, the mangoes, the breadfruit. And that always stuck in my mind. And I thought, why don't we try to create this model around the world where people have that buffer, where we can create farms where they have that buffer, those fruit to sell throughout the year. So one day I said to my husband, he was expecting, to play golf with his buddies after a long career of working, and I said, I want to plant fruit trees around the world. And he said, if you're going to do it, you have to do it properly. You have to get really educated. We have to find good collaborators. And we have to find the very best trees. We don't want to give people rubbish trees. We want to give them trees that will have the best value in the market. So we started to do that. And I always remembered growing up eating breadfruit. And the breadfruit tree was that hallmark tree that fills your belly. It not just fills your belly, it does much, much more. And since I've been working on breadfruit and becoming an expert, we can't become experts in everything, but we certainly can collaborate with experts. And the Hawaiians have done a lot of work in breadfruit because breadfruit originated in the Pacific. How many of you here, just a show of hands, have never heard of breadfruit? Okay, well, I'm hoping at the end of my talk, you'll have a little more knowledge. And since there are so many hands, I want to give you a little bit of background. Breadfruit trees are tropical tree from the Pacific. So think of Tahiti, Fiji, Hawaii. That's their main staple that they eat. It's a beautiful tree, huge leaves, a long life, and it bears a fruit that's kind of like the size of a cantaloupe. It varies in size. It can be the size of a grapefruit, or it can weigh up to 10 pounds. And it's filled with carbohydrates. It can be picked fresh. You almost never eat it raw. So it's picked fresh, and you can roast it, boil it, fry it. Think of a potato on a tree. Imagine having a tree that produces your most basic carbohydrate. And most fruit trees, when you think of them, it's dessert. It's things that are sweet and make you feel good. Apples, peaches, pears, cherries, those are all temperate fruit trees. But once you head into the tropics, you tend to have a different assortment of fruit trees. Yes, you have the nuts that give you lots of protein and oils, but you have a lot of mangoes, avocados, guavas, pomegranates. And these are all trees that we plant, and we try to plant the very best varieties, the varieties that have value, because we not only want to feed people, but we want to create jobs, and we want to help the environment all in one package. But it's hard work to get that all done. So we start slowly. And we work with experts, and we also work with good people in the countries we work in. We only go into a country when we've been invited to go into that country, when we have a good collaborator, somebody who wants to be our partner. They have the hard work to do. We can sit in North America and visit periodically, but it's the people that are there working with the farmers every day, getting the holes dug properly, getting the trees to survive. And survivability is hard. You read on the internet and the newspaper, everybody wants to plant trees now, and they can plant trees for a penny. Well, I don't know how anybody plants a tree for a penny or plants a tree that survives for a penny, because it's important to plant that tree. It is much more important to keep that tree alive. And when that tree comes to maturity, to look at pruning practices, yielding practices, and markets. The market is the hardest thing for us to do in getting our program successful. Now I'm going to break this talk down into 3 topics: food, jobs, and the environment. Because if you plant trees and there are no jobs and people can't get money from it, then the trees are going to turn into firewood. And that's the last thing that we want. So we know that market is important. And we know if the trees survive, the environment survives. And I'm sure that everybody in this room knows about the benefits of the environment for trees. So let's look at food. Regarding food, we've worked with scientists in Hawaii and in the University of British Columbia who've done a lot of work on breadfruit. And they've analyzed the nutrition of breadfruit. And there are different nutritional qualities depending on the cultivar of the breadfruit trees. But if a pregnant woman lives on nothing but breadfruit, and we don't want that to happen, but if she does, she produces a perfectly healthy baby. And this shows that this fruit's not just a rubbish fruit, not just to fill your belly, but it does more. It gives you the nutrients to keep somebody healthy. With the micronutrients, it's rich in magnesium, potassium, and vitamins. Of course, we hope that they supplement their diet with other things, but this can replace your most basic carbohydrates in a holistic way. It's from a tree. A farmer doesn't have to till the soil. They don't have to rely on fertilizers. They don't have to do back-breaking work. They can plant this tree, keep it alive, go about their business doing their other things, and this will add to their income, and that's what we'd like to do. So let's look at fruit again, at the food again. And I'm going to break it down between local food supply and exported food. This is local food, and these pictures are just from Haiti. First picture shows somebody picking fresh breadfruit. That's what it looks like. It has a shelf life of a banana, and this is what's important. Breadfruit, it's either feast or famine. An average tree produces about 300 fruit per year. Each fruit weighs somewhere around 3 to 4 pounds. 3/4 of the fruit is water, like with most fruit. So when it's dried, you can get 1 pound of flour. So think of 1 fruit, 1 pound of flour. 300 fruit per year, 300 pounds of flour. Does that start to resonate to you? Most people in tropical countries, where do they get their flour? If they grow it from grains, that's good. Local grains. That's hard work to do, to get a pound of flour from grains. But think of 300 fruit per tree, 300 pounds of flour. That's nutritious. And at the same time, the benefit is we're helping the environment, which really is so important today. So I'll go into the process of how to make the flour later, but the second picture is taken in a supermarket in Haiti. And breadfruit flour is the only product on that shelf that's locally made. There's Quaker oats, there's lots of fancy products from the United States, but that breadfruit flour is the only one that's locally made. And it's hard work to get that into a supermarket shelf in Haiti. The second picture is a child having breadfruit porridge. That's a main use that we do with breadfruit flour. Now, the breadfruit in that first picture, that has a shelf life of a banana. Think of buying a banana and putting it on your kitchen shelf. You have to eat that pretty quickly. When a fruit's bearing 300 fruit over a period of 3 months, there's a lot of waste. So we encourage people to have as much fresh breadfruit in season as possible. Do whatever you want with it. The excess you preserve. And I'll go into the preservation later. And it's feast and famine. We want to have a steady food supply. That's food security throughout the year. So if you have a breadfruit tree, 300 fruit, you eat one each day for your family, and you preserve the rest, then you can have enough food to supplement your food supply the rest of the year. That's what I think of as food security at the most basic level. So breadfruit flour, what do we use it for? I make it into porridge, mix it with powdered milk, coconut milk. I usually add some sugar and some spices, and it's oatmeal. And if these children in these tropical countries grow up eating oatmeal, think of what you love most. It's the food of your childhood. So we're kind of changing the culture here by preserving the breadfruit. We're trying to get breadfruit introduced into local bakeries across the countries we serve. It's really hard because we're competing against US subsidized, inexpensive wheat. But even if 10% of all the bread that's made in these countries can incorporate breadfruit flour, think of the ripple effect, the economic ripple effect that it can have throughout the country. So you can scale up. It can be a mom with 2 or 3 breadfruit trees around her house, because these trees are shady, so we want to make sure we're not stealing sunlight for the crops that she would want. So if she has these shading her house, she's using a grater to grate, dehydrate, then pound with a mortar and pestle, and she's saving her breadfruit flour throughout the year. That's the most basic level. Then we can have processors who are working at an artisan level, and that's the next slide that's coming up. We can make breadfruit flour, and then they can sell it to the local bakeries, substitute. Women in the markets in Haiti, they do what's called fritai, which is a fried flour. If that can be done, that's scaling up. Next is a bakery. The next is a commercial bakery. So that's the way we're thinking. I hope you're following me, and I hope you think this is logical. This next slide shows the products that can be made from breadfruit for export. Export's a whole different level, but some of these products can be made and sold locally as well. They don't have to be for export. Most of the breadfruit grown in the world is exported fresh. Now, it's costly to export fresh, but there's an emotional tie to people who have left their homeland, either in the Pacific or the Caribbean, and who now love breadfruit. They buy it fresh in supermarkets. It has to be air freighted, and it's never really good. It's always lost something as you travel with it. So most people that are exporting are doing this, and we are struggling to see if we can get them to change. We have companies that are making chips, breadfruit chips. They are just delicious. You think potato chips are good, breadfruit chips are even better. There's a company in Jamaica that makes breadfruit chips. They run their factory full-time in season. They get on the supermarket shelf. Within 2 days, they're done. So there is the demand. There is the untapped potential. That third little slide, French fries. Breadfruit French fries are becoming popular. Becoming popular because people think of French fries as very American. So when you're in, that picture is in St. Kitts, the Kentucky Fried Chicken was selling breadfruit chips, and they did it, and it was wildly successful. They're now serving breadfruit chips to school children in Puerto Rico. That last slide on the first row, tostones, that seems to be the magic bullet for breadfruit at the moment. I'll tell you a story. I'll segue into a story. About 4 years ago, I got a phone call. I'm very active in social media. This woman heard about us on social media. She was originally from Puerto Rico. She lives in Miami, and she said, "Mary, I have an idea. I've been eating breadfruit tostones, and they are wonderful." She started experimenting with breadfruit tostones. Then she decided to go to the Dominican Republic, where they have a lot of breadfruit that goes to waste. She set up a little factory. She test marketed. Then she did a presentation to Goya. Have you heard of Goya? They're a big food processor. Goya test marketed it and said, "When's your first container coming?" Well, now she realized she couldn't manage, so she then went to a company that was making breadfruit chips. And this is in the Dominican Republic, and they're called Jamaica Producers. They're huge. And she said, "Will you make me breadfruit tostones?" Well, there are a lot of hiccups. How to get the fruit efficiently to the factory, how to get it to work. She was able to do it, and that was 4 years ago. This last breadfruit season, every week, 7 shipping containers of breadfruit tostones left the Dominican Republic for Miami. You go into a supermarket and you never see them. That's because they're so popular. I'll tell you, since I'm on the tostones movement, I'll tell you. Now, what's a tostones? How many don't know what a tostones is? Okay. Okay, I'm thinking of my closest analogy. Think of a rough-cut potato that's fried. The breadfruit, think of it's round, so it's challenging, kind of like a potato. It's cut into cubes, just rough cut into tubes that are about the size of a biscuit. It's deep fried, then mashed, and then salted, and then distributed. Now they're frozen in bags. So you get them, you bring your bag home from the supermarket, it's frozen. You put it in your oven, you reheat it, or some people then refry it, so it's fried a second time. And it's really delicious. It's crunchy on the outside and chewy on the inside. So that's what a tostones is. Many countries do plantain tostones. This is breadfruit tostones. So I got a phone call maybe 18 months ago, and it was a man. Oh, where am I going? Oh, is that a tostones? Okay, thank you. That's a tostones. In Puerto Rico, they're served in almost all restaurants, and they're served with a magic sauce. It's called a pink sauce. It's really 50% mayonnaise and 50% ketchup. And that's a very popular. So tostones are taking over. So I get a phone call maybe 18 months ago. It's an American who's living in Nicaragua, and he's exporting coconuts to the States. And he says, you seem to be the breadfruit person. There are lots of breadfruit trees that are here. A Norwegian company came in 10 years ago, planted breadfruit trees. There was an upheaval. They all left. And there are all these trees. There's nothing to do with them. He has shipped his second shipping container load of tostones to the United States. And this is the model we would want to make. Now, we are very conscious. We never want the advancement of this program to hurt the local person. The local person must always be fed first, always be able to make a living first. So what we have done, and Mike, my husband, is the champion for this, is we have decided to get a supply chain organized. And we have done this in Jamaica because in Jamaica things are a little easier than, say, Haiti. We found that there were farmers that had a lot of breadfruit and couldn't sell it, and there were new factories who wanted breadfruit for their factories and couldn't get it. So Mike decided to start a study, and this was a supply chain study, because to get the economy to work, you need an efficient supply chain. So we have hired local people to walk the highways and the byways, and these are people who are educated, who understand latitude and longitude. And they go with a clipboard, and they visit a farmer, and the first question is, would you like to be able to sell your fruit more efficiently? If he says yes, the next step is, can we use your contact information, your cell phone information? We're going to put it on our website. If he gives permission, we have the latitude and longitude tagged on a GPS map on our website with the number of trees he has and his contact information. We make that available for anyone, whether you're exporting fresh breadfruit, or you want to make breadfruit flour, or you have a factory that's making breadfruit tostones or chips. And this is how we don't get involved in the money, because we are hoping the marketplace will take care of that. But the factory worker can now contact all of these farmers on our website and say, my truck's coming to your corner. I'm willing to pay this much. Next Tuesday morning, have your fruit ready. And it's working. We've only done a part of one of the districts in Jamaica. They're called parishes. But all of those farmers can sell all of their fruit. We visited a farmer that we'd given trees to about 6 years ago, Mr. Ball. Mr. Ball lived in a very remote area. He had about 3 acres of breadfruit. We planted maybe 30 to an acre, depending if you want agroforests or if you just want them on your field margins. But he lived on a fairly steep hillside, so it was hard for farming, but you can plant trees on hillsides. He had it there. When we went and visited and talked, his trees were doing well. He was keeping them pruned properly. And he said to us, he said, you know, in Jamaica, we don't have a pension. These trees are my pension. He says, I sit here during the breadfruit season. People come to buy my fruit. They come with their pickers. They pick, we weigh, I get paid, and they leave. He has a wonderful agroforest. He has an entire financial system that's working for him. He has 3 acres of land. He can retire with dignity. The lower picture on the left is breadfruit flour. That's what we think as the magic bullet. We like breadfruit flour. Why? Because it has a 2-year shelf life. Anybody can make it. Anybody can use it. I use it daily at my house. It's a gluten-free flour. It's made from a tree. It's ecologically, I think, as perfect as you can get. And I use it to make pancakes. That's easy. I use it to make biscuits. Because it's gluten-free, you can't make bread. But some people are experimenting and making bread, but it makes wonderful porridge. And breadfruit flour, I brought some props. We make breadfruit flour in Haiti, and if anybody came up with a more efficient way of packaging, I think they could make $1 million. I hate these plastic bags. But if we're buying it in bulk, they go in reusable tubs that go back and forth to schools. We do a lot of breadfruit flour for schools. This is Haitian. When we work with Haitian processors, we help them with labeling, because labeling is very difficult, and if something's beautifully packaged, it makes a lot of difference in selling. And we sometimes their contact information always has to be on it, because if you like your product, you want to reorder, you need to know where. Supermarkets are not always reliable. So this is Haitian breadfruit flour. Now in Puerto Rico, they're more successful. That's their packaging. And she is so successful, she makes a mix. She can't get enough breadfruit flour. So she makes a mix of breadfruit flour and rice flour. And she is selling this. She sells it directly to consumers in the States, just on a website. And she's very successful. She's actually going to be importing breadfruit flour into Puerto Rico to fulfill her orders. She's unbelievably successful. So breadfruit flour is what we really like. It can feed school children. It can supply local bakeries. And you can turn it into many other products. And at the end, I will tell you what my magic product is, what my dream is for breadfruit flour. Now we go on, and that second slide in, that's roasted breadfruit. Jamaicans love roasted breadfruit. There's something about putting that breadfruit in the open fire, charring the skin, and it kind of steams it on the inside. And when you cut it open, it smells just like a freshly baked bread. So there are companies in Jamaica that are now roasting breadfruit, peeling them, vacuum sealing them, and exporting them. And they're also selling them in local supermarkets. It has to be refrigerated, but it's a successful product. That white blob that you see, that's fermented breadfruit. The Tahitians and the Samoans have always preserved their breadfruit by fermenting it. I know nothing about fermenting, but I'm telling you about it. It's like a sourdough, and traditionally they dug pits in the ground, lined it with banana leaves, put in mashed breadfruit, and it's devoid of oxygen, and it just ferments. And you take a piece, and you can make bread with it. It's very tart, kind of sauerkrautish bread, but that's what they have done. And then we have a guy in the Virgin Islands that's making breadfruit vodka. He found he couldn't use fresh breadfruit, he had to use breadfruit flour. And he was importing his breadfruit flour from Samoa to St. Croix to make breadfruit vodka. Now we are getting more trees into the Virgin Islands. Now we're not in the alcohol business, but this is just something I want you to know. There's the opportunity. Opportunity is boundless. So these are products that are a more sophisticated level I wanted you to be aware of. And let's go back to the tostones. Her factory is in the Dominican Republic, in the northwest of the Dominican Republic, close to the Haitian border. They do not have enough breadfruit to fulfill their orders in their factory. If we could find an effective way to get breadfruit from Haiti to their factory in the Dominican Republic, there would be a wonderful economic opportunity. At that factory in the Dominican Republic, they purchase 10 100,000 pounds of breadfruit a day. Now you just think of that number, think of the economic opportunity. So they're doing very well. They'd like to expand. They are expanding, in fact, in Nicaragua. But this just shows the potential. This is what it takes to do a commercial operation for export. It's huge, it's big. We facilitate by opening markets, but this is not something that we do. This is actually this happens in Nicaragua, Dominican Republic, and in Jamaica. Jamaica is shipping its first container of breadfruit flour in the next couple of weeks. They make breadfruit flour with the skin and without the skin. But to do this, you need a nutrition label, you sometimes need a barcode, you need proper packaging. You have to meet the health standards of the country and the country that you are importing it to, and you need to ship it efficiently. And shipping can be a huge cost as well. But if somebody is interested in doing this, we're happy to help. We help everyone. We help with guiding them for the right equipment, the right standards, the right methodology. This is what it takes if you're making breadfruit at a most basic level for food security. You start with fresh breadfruit. You peel it or not. In Jamaica, they have good chlorinated water, so they don't peel the breadfruit. They just core it. It has an inner core. You core it. Then you shred it. You shred it. Think of carrot salad. Think of cheese on tacos, that kind of shred. You shred it like that. We have handheld shredding equipment. At a more sophisticated level, you can use electrical shredders. Think of a food processor, a handheld food processor. Then you need to dry it. And there are many, many different ways of drying it. You can just put it out in the sun in a mesh and dry it, or you can dry it in a solar dryer. And then you need to grind it. Once it's dried, now you have a very long shelf life, and then you grind it. And then you have your flour. It's very simple, very basic. It's hard work to do it manually. I'm going to tell you a story about Haiti, back to Haiti, because we started in Jamaica, but we do a lot of work in Haiti. In Jamaica, we've almost graduated. We've shown them the concept. They're doing it. They really don't need us anymore. They do, but they don't. This is those 4 boxes. Those are our 4 main areas in Haiti where people are established making breadfruit flour. Most of them are entrepreneurs. They work on their own. We started out working with co-ops, sometimes working with an entrepreneur. Because we live in Chicago, we communicate by WhatsApp. If you just work with one person, it seems a little easier just for us. But there's nothing that stops cooperatives doing this. Their Effort Vision. This is James, Effort Vision. He started as a church mission. Luckily for them, it's a church with a flat roof. There's a lot of breadfruit. They don't own any breadfruit trees. So they're buying breadfruit from the market. That means that there's money along the way. It's helping money downstream, the person who owns the trees. They peel them. They have an ingenious way of peeling the breadfruit. They want to do it efficiently. So they have an electric drill on a turkey spit. And they turn that drill on, the breadfruit spins, and they just hold a potato peeler. And they peel them quickly. On the roof of their church, they have 4 solar dryers. They dry the breadfruit, and then they sell it. Marketing is always tricky. We as an organization, we're asking people to do this. Then we offer to buy breadfruit flour from them for 2 years. We do this to give them the security to know that they can build a business, and we are their safety net. Now, we do it as much as we can afford, but we try to honor commitments when we make it. What do we do with it when we buy it? We then turn around and donate it to school feeding programs, to orphanages, mainly into schools. We try to just service those in the direct community around them. He is close to Port-au-Prince, so he supplies the schools in Port-au-Prince with the breadfruit flour. Now he can't get into Port-au-Prince. So he wrote and he said, schools, there are orphanages close to us where the kids don't have enough to eat. And we said, well, just transfer it to them. When things settle down, we will readdress the situation. Breadfruit flour is new. People are used to what they're used to. So adaptability is a concern. But what he and the other 3 guys do is they run cooking schools. They go into a community with the equipment, show them how to do breadfruit flour, and then they cook, and that's lunch. And they show the versatility of breadfruit. They fry, they make balls. Anything you do with a potato, they do. Or mainly with flour, they do, except bread. So the cooking schools help. And the cooking schools also get people accustomed to this. And most people in the cooking schools end up taking home some breadfruit flour, and they potentially become the new consumers of this product. We also always insist that people make breadfruit flour. We cannot be their primary source of revenue. We buy some. Every year we reduce it. We graduate them, and that forces them to create their own market. He is selling to supermarkets. He's selling to bakeries. He's selling to local women who are making breadfruit banana bread and then selling it as street food. So that's what he does. We repeat that across Haiti. And as you see, those communities don't abut each other. So now they can work in partnership. They exchange ideas. They talk about their pitfalls. They, as local entrepreneurs, can help each other. And they certainly do. Jobs. Jobs are important. Jobs create dignity. You know, I grew up in Jamaica, and there were a lot of missionaries, and I've seen the evolution of this. I went to a school that was run by, 1 year by the Methodists, 1 year by the Presbyterians. They traded off. Now Jamaica has evolved, and everybody running the schools are locals. They've been educated. They run the schools. That's the evolution. But if you don't have a job, somebody else has to educate you. If you have the money to pay for your child's education, then, and you stand alone, you have dignity. If you have a job and you have money to pay for your health care, you have dignity. If you have a job and you can pay for your children's clothing and your house, you have dignity. So we see these trees not just as trees, but as a movement towards personal dignity. And that's what we want to do with these trees. So what are the jobs that you can get around the trees? They're nurseries, they're plant nurseries. Many people working in plant nurseries growing those trees, those are jobs. People who are processing into flour, those are jobs. People who are harvesting in the bakeries, whether they're roasting it and selling it outside of supermarkets. In Jamaica, you drive into a Jamaican supermarket where you have fancy US products on the shelves. But there's always somebody right outside of the gate of the supermarket, and he's selling a roasted breadfruit. So you know when you leave your supermarket, you can buy your roasted breadfruit and take it home. Those are jobs that are being created. And then we're starting to build solar dryers. And the people who are making the solar dryers, they now have dignity in the work that they do. And we are amazed at the quality of the work that they're doing to making their solar dryers. So jobs are key. Now, the economic potential of breadfruit, kind of covered it. But breadfruit flour is gluten-free. The gluten-free market in the United States is estimated to be about 400,000, am I reading it right? Or is it 400,000 tons of gluten-free product. That's a huge untapped potential. Breadfruit cannot be grown in the United States or Europe. So you're not competing with huge mega farms in the United States and Europe. This is something that's unique. If we can make breadfruit flour something that's desired because it has so many good things around it, then we can tap into that market, whether it's local or not. You know, I go through the Port-au-Prince airport, and I always buy a snack at the end. And I keep thinking, why can't I just get a breadfruit cookie at the end? That would be my ultimate gift to Haiti that I'm helping to reforest. So one day soon you'll see that. But there is this huge potential. And we are seeing this potential. We've been approached by North American big bakery companies. They want to start looking at breadfruit flour. But we see so many children in these countries that need to be fed. And that's a huge, every less pound of food that's brought in from North America to Haiti, and Haiti imports probably 80% of its food. If we can just place some breadfruit flour in as a stopgap, not as a stopgap, as part of that system, that's more money that stays within these countries. And that's what we would like to do. That's creating wealth. So you, but we have to do that with education. You have to do that with planting trees. Now, I'll take this opportunity to tell you how we give away trees. If you're in an area, because we can only work because we have partners like you who are willing to plant trees. So if you are in the tropics, you have adequate rainfall, and so if you can grow bananas, think if you grow bananas, you can grow breadfruit. But breadfruit doesn't grow much above 2,000 feet. So if you're over 2,000 feet, you can't grow breadfruit. Under that, we have a simple system, a coupon system. On our website, we have a form, or you email us, and I'll give you the contact information. Email us, simple request form. In reality, everybody who asks, we try to give. They request trees, they request equipment, they request food, breadfruit flour. Fill out that form. Then we send a coupon. Think of it as currency. If you want trees, we don't like to give too many trees at once because it's hard to give too many trees, to plant too many trees. So you get your coupon, you go, you collect, you hand in your paper, you collect your trees. The nursery person sends us a picture from their phone that you've collected your trees. We pay them. So it's a simple system. We can keep track of it fairly easily. And we have spreadsheets showing everybody who has ever received trees, breadfruit flour, breadfruit baked goods, or our coloring book, or equipment. So we know where everything is, so we can hold people accountable if the trees don't survive. That's important. So I'm running out of time. I've run out of time. Oh my gosh, I've talked too much. So,
Time for questions.
yes. So I'm out of questions. I think I've told you my story. I just got on this roll and I ran out of time, so I apologize. But you can see where breadfruit can grow. And you can see those colors in green. That's where you have the greatest hunger on this planet. So thank you. I'll be at the visitor session later, and you can come and speak to me, and I'll fill you in. I'll tell you everything that I didn't get a chance to talk about.